The mic just totally picked up one of my loudest, like, stomach rum.
You're listening to Ignite the Frame.
Creativity is a critical driver of any successful organization, but most teams struggle to turn it into action. Today on Ignite the Frame, I'm joined by Andrew Masters. Andrew has pastored churches in a variety of places across Canada for over 2 decades. He's passionate about creativity and innovating to solve problems in community and business. I invited him to share practical ways that leaders can embed creativity into every aspect of the organization and build cultures where it truly thrives. Hi, Andrew.
How's it going?
Thanks for being here. I'm excited to sit and chat. We've had some conversations in the past about creativity within an organization and why it matters. And I thought it'd be fun to chat here about why creativity is important. Maybe as a starting point, how do you define creativity? Like, where do we start with all of this?
Yeah, creativity is a big topic. I don't think we want to get in the weeds too much. And just to simplify it, creativity, I think, is just simply combining knowledge and information in a new way. That's all it is. And so this should be encouraging for us. I do believe in like genuine inspiration in new creation, but I think that's a lot of pressure, especially in today's day and age. Things are moving quickly. There's a lot of change in front of us. And a lot of people may or may not inherently feel like they're creative, or they may feel creatively exhausted. And to those people, I'd say it's going to be okay. You can do this. You can create.
Definitely with the fast pace the world moves at. I mean, we have to find new and innovative ways to address problems and come up with solutions. So if organizations are built on creativity, why is it something that we like bring in? You hire a person to do, a consultant, or you bring in someone to do a creative job. Why is it not something viewed as sort of central to what we're doing then?
Yeah, I mean, I would just say I would maybe soften that a little bit. I think creativity is an essential tool. I don't think everything that we're doing needs to be solely built on creativity. I think there's a lot of skill sets required to make things successful, but I think it really deserves a healthy place in our workplaces and in our culture. I have found personally that I can be a little more creative given some time and some space, which seems to be at a premium these days. I think there's also a sense of play with creativity, a sense of experimentation. And as a leader, do you give yourself time to wonder or to play or to experiment? And I think that we need to examine the cultures around us in that context and learn to define also failure a bit differently.
Okay. How so?
Well, I mean, I think you've heard that before, right? You can fail or you can learn.
Yes.
And I think there's a lot of fear when we talk about creativity of failure, like it can come at a cost. But I think sometimes we need to realize that if you're going to truly try to be creative, you need to redefine failure or the consequences of failure in an organization. And ask the question, like, do we give ourselves that time? Do we allow our teams to experiment or suggest new ideas?
It's really hard to make space for that when you feel like I just have to get this done, and especially if there is like a normal way of doing something or whatever, a normal path. You think, oh, gee, am I going to take time to try something that's out of the box or something that, we wouldn't normally do? And there's a cost with that. And just thinking about that, what is the cost of what you see in organizations?
You and I have chatted a little bit in the past about this, and I don't see it as much, but it's out there in different industries. But research and development, a lot of the things that we have today and enjoy today came at some point. They were in an R&D phase. People were messing with it behind the scenes before it was known or seen. And I think research and development is truly important. Taking time to create, to play, as we've talked about, to experiment, helps us to build better cultures. leads us to learning and leads us to discovery.
Mm-hmm.
And hopefully that keeps us thriving and continuing to have impact in the world. And we're always wrestling. Do we have a budget for this? Do we have time for this? Yeah. But the consequences, if we don't wrestle with those questions, I think are pretty severe. We really want to make sure that we're inviting creativity and innovation, because it is something that if we don't create the space for it, it will completely disappear.
Yeah.
And I think that the loss of these things is not felt immediately, but it's felt in the long term as it slowly gives way to kind of obsolescence. And and then we realize, oh my goodness, this is hitting us hard. And to rebuild those muscles again takes some time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how do you, as a leader that has people you're responsible to, a board, right?
Mm-hmm.
How does a leader, you can speak from personal experience or in general, how do you navigate that and convince people who maybe aren't looking at sort of those metrics?
That's a good question.
Do you get pushback, I guess, or how do you deal with pushback?
Well, yeah, you always get pushback.
Yeah.
That's a real thing. We've talked a little bit about Frederick Herron.
Yeah.
And he, in some of his work, he talks about, leaders need to try creative things.
Mm-hmm.
And so one of the best ways that I have been able to convince leaders is to get a small amount of buy-in on an idea that I'm really passionate about. So if I'm passionate about something, I believe in something, I continue to bring it to the table. Maybe I have to fight for that for quite a while.
Yeah.
But effectively, at some point you get a little bit of creative permission.
Yeah.
And when people see something that is creative go well, or people respond favorably, or it create an outcome they didn't quite expect, there is a proof side to that. And the reality is that people do respond. You're right. There's different kinds of personalities.
Yeah.
Not everyone in every company is ultra creative, nor needs to be.
Yeah.
But oftentimes, I think our organizations, and especially the world in such a fast-paced reality, kind of we do end up losing or not prioritizing the creative sector.
Yes.
And so I think when you bring it in, one, it just creates a sense of freshness, but it also awakens and engages a certain portion of people that are often kind of pushed to the margins a little bit once in a while.
Yes.
And engagement is anytime you can engage a small percentage more people in what you're doing, that's a win for everyone.
Yes.
Yeah.
Not only is it good for the bottom line, whatever that is in the organization, however you're measuring that, but it helps with building community.
Yes.
And that could look like team building, that could look like true community where people are engaging with one another in life and that sort of thing. What have you seen change, just shifting gears a little bit here, in the last sort of 6 years since the pandemic? I know a lot has changed. What have you noticed within organizations and within how that needs to be approached? I feel like things have sped up a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Everything happens faster and everything's expected to happen faster. What's your take on that?
Yeah, I mean, in some senses, it'd be nice to not talk about the pandemic.
Yeah.
But it's important to, right? Yeah, it is a reality, and I think there was a sense of kind of shock around that.
Mm-hmm.
It really did change things.
Yeah.
Some for the better, some for the worse. And like you said, I think the reality of rapid change has really, like that kind of felt like, a fast-moving train got sped up, and it's showing no signs of slowing.
Yes.
And, we could all wish things were different in certain ways, but the reality is the speed is going to continue to occur.
Yeah.
We touched on technology earlier, right?
Yeah.
Some of those things are a part of that, and things were digitized heavily in that era and continue to push forward at an incredible pace.
Yeah.
So we're not facing incremental change.
Mm-hmm.
We're facing the challenges of significant technology and significant technology shifts that are really going to change everything, right? The whole future of the world and how we engage with it is truly changing kind of in front of us. And I just want to acknowledge too that change is not I mean, there's maybe a few people that enjoy it, but it's constant change is hard
Yeah.
and it's very messy. And I would also say that in that environment, we've talked about this too, or have touched on this, but that the idea of things being obsolescent is real.
Mm-hmm.
So when things change quickly, new things are sprouting up everywhere, but also other things are dying or coming to an end,
Yeah.
or they stop being relevant.
Yeah.
And I don't want to be in that mix. I want to continue to have relevance. I want to continue to have impact. And so I want to embrace creativity in a way that helps me to continue to have a voice.
Yeah.
And continue to extend the impact that I want to see in the world.
Yeah.
And I think that ultimately, if I embrace creativity and I embrace the idea that I constantly need to adapt, that the chances of my contributions being meaningful are going to be much higher.
Yes.
Yeah.
So with an organization or a leader, what are the consequences of ignoring or not making space? You've touched on this a bit. I don't know if you have anything you want to add.
Yeah.
But not making space for creativity.
There are a lot of consequences to not at least taking creativity and innovation seriously.
Mm-hmm.
It's not going to be like we discussed it. The impacts might not be obvious immediately right away, but eventually they catch up with us. And there's a bunch of things I could speak to. There's going to be a complete loss of innovation within your culture.
Yeah.
I think the quality of your services and goods is eventually going to plateau as you stop looking for innovation and you just settle in. We've talked about the idea of eventually becoming obsolescent, which is a real thing. We actually see that in real time. It's not just an idea; it's happening. We also, in our cultures, would lose a sense of play.
Yeah.
We would lose our ability to experiment and all the learning that comes just through trying. We're also going to have in our cultures a crushing fear of failure.
Yeah.
And I would much rather be a part of a culture that encourages playful aspects and sees fear in with a much more healthy dynamic.
Yeah.
And then I think also too, there's going to be a disengagement of our people. And we're going to stop hearing their best and weirdest ideas.
Yes.
So that's going to happen internally in our organization. We're going to, people are going to stop speaking up or making good suggestions.
Yeah.
But then we're also going to be disengaged from the people that we're trying to reach as well.
Mm-hmm.
Which, again, that's the beginning of the end in a lot of respects.
I worked with someone years ago. It just reminded me of that. You saying, about stop hearing ideas. And he used to call those the bad ideas that would come before the brilliant ideas, the leeches. And, he's like, you have to get some of those out before you can get to the good ideas. But, creating that space where you can have those kind of conversations and share ideas and not be afraid to say something that might be stupid or weird, because sometimes something really great comes from that.
Yeah.
And that's really important.
Yeah. Brainstorming is I love brainstorming. And I think it's interesting when I'm in a room with people who maybe aren't, as accustomed to brainstorming.
Yes.
They think I'm being serious about every idea that's coming out of my mouth.
Yeah.
And I am being serious about the practice of kind of brainstorming, but I know that 8 to 9 out of every 10 ideas isn't great.
Yes.
And it's just the process of using the muscles to form ideas. And a lot of it isn't going to be useful.
Yeah.
But some of it will be, and some of it will end up being the seed of a transformational idea that may have significant impact, not even right now, but going down the road a bit.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll find ourselves in meetings regularly with people who aren't used to the creative process. They're very methodical in how they approach things, right? And I see that a lot in the corporate communications world, especially with public sector organizations. There's kind of a lot of rules to follow. There's ways things are done. There's, a voice that they speak in and things like that. And sometimes you have to say, hey, just for the sake of brainstorming, let's look at some other ideas here. And these may not be good ideas. Don't, judge harshly on these, but let's just, work on sort of getting some ideas out there and then approaching it. Which can be a little scary at times because you don't know how they're going to react, right? And sometimes people embrace that and think it's fun and get into it. And then sometimes it's a little bit more like, oh, I don't know, that seems a little out of the box, for us.
Yeah, if you don't change your processes, it's very hard to actually have a different outcome.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Certain processes lead to certain outcomes. And I think it's really important that we realize that if we want different outcomes, we actually need to try some different processes.
So how do people do that when they're worried about, their job and things like that, right? Because a lot of times, I've seen many cases over the years where someone's like, "Oh, that's a really cool idea." We'll present, a couple different concepts or something, and say, "Here's one that's out of the box. That's not normal. It's funny or it's different or entertaining." And then here's something that's a little more sort of safe and traditional. And I think there's this fear of like, what if this doesn't work out? What if it's not as good as we think or whatever? How that's going to reflect on them? How do you encourage people to try new things, but then also when they're concerned with, who they're responsible to, right? Who they're answering to?
Yeah. I think, I would refer back to maybe what we talked about earlier, which is what creativity is,
Mm-hmm.
and clearly understanding that.
Yeah.
That it's combining current information, a lot of the information that we have in new ways.
Yes.
And so I think that we can be creatively inspired. And I think when people think of creativity, they think of genuine inspiration.
Yeah.
But you can also be creative by looking around at what you have right now, and also actually looking into your past can help you be creative, right? Because it's simply combining the information that we have today and had in the past in new ways.
Yeah.
So I would encourage people to understand what creativity is, to do research into your company or into your industry.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't just understand it now, but you've understood its trajectory, and you've kind of, maybe there's things that occurred in the past decades ago that there's a piece of that can be shifted or reformed in some way to be useful to you today. And it may not be as painful or as costly as you once thought. And you may even, and this is a very hopeful thought, but I think a lot of times we have a lot of the pieces and we have a lot of the tools that we already need. And we're just looking for ways that we can recombine them or reconfigure them so that they can continue to have like creative impact. I would say there's a couple practical things that people can do. I would encourage people to find good video sources or buy a book on creativity.
Mm-hmm.
I would say, like I touched on earlier, that you have to actually take time to do creative things.
Yeah.
So take a shot on your own time, not even in your workplace, at doing something creative and simple and not terribly costly. And I would encourage people to be kind to themselves. The point is not a specific outcome.
Yeah.
The point is to get better at creative process and thinking creatively and enjoying creativity and seeing it as valuable and necessary to continue to have the impact that you want to have. You can try new ideas. You can maybe create some space for some of those brainstorming discussions we talked about within a team context. I would say make verbalizing ideas common in your teams, right? Whether it's an official session, but just the idea that you have a culture that's open to people speaking ideas, or a culture that is open to input or feedback is very, very useful. And I also want to just touch on something I think that's important. It can be nerve-wracking. Like, industries are changing, jobs are on the line.
Yeah.
But I want to say that's the truth. The truth is already, whether we're creative or not, that a lot of our sectors and a lot of our jobs are at risk. And that whether we want it or not, change is actually coming. We're not slowing it down. You can either kind of hold on for dear life or find a way to participate in that reality. And so I think this is an important thing to understand. And I think we want to be intentional, see that coming, and do what we need to do to build lasting effectiveness. and create the possibilities of better outcomes.
Mhm.
And so I think that the power of creativity and unlocking the power that it possesses is needed actually more now than ever, just
Mhm.
because of the speed of things, because everything is on the line.
Yeah.
I mean, we have things occurring in the world today that weren't occurring 30 years ago. It's genuinely new. It's going to reshape everything.
Yeah.
And so we can, it is, you can be nervous about it, but you can really allow that to shut you down and like fear to grab you and take hold, or you can be intentional about the muscles and the time and the habits that you need to have as an organization
Yeah.
to hopefully continue to thrive into the future.
Yeah. That's very true.
Yeah.
Very true. You're a pastor.
Mm-hmm.
Talk to me about how you see differences maybe between a church or a faith organization, a nonprofit, a business, and how creativity can be brought into that organization. Does it fundamentally vary a lot, or is an organization an organization?
Yeah. In a lot of ways, I don't think it's too different. I think the difference though is honestly in outcomes,
Mhm.
in the deliverables.
Okay.
And I think the goals of the work I do are different from the goals of a
Of
business.
course. Yeah.
And so not for profit and for profit, just as a brief chat,
Yeah.
is one literally has the goal of making money.
Yes.
And there's a group of shareholders often that have a broad say. And that creates a unique set of opportunities and problems. And in a not-for-profit scenario, you need to have money to kind of work at the mission,
Yeah.
but the outcomes you're looking for are never profit.
Yeah.
You need survivability
Yeah.
strategies, but those outcomes are very different. And
Mhm.
so fundamentally the need for creativity in each scenario and how you work with people and the cultures you want to develop, that they would be healthy, flexible, not fear-based. People would engage you well, that they would be honest and have integrity and work hard. None of those things change. But the product side, I don't have a lot of expertise at that,
Mhm.
but I do know that those outcomes on each side of the profit or not-for-profit discussion are different.
Yes.
And I think they both require
Mhm.
creative skill sets.
Yeah.
I do think the consequences, shareholders, I've often wished actually that it sounds so funny to say, but can you imagine a church that charged like a price for a sin
Yeah. Yeah.
or something like that?
Yeah.
Because you want to, we need totally different solutions for surviving just in having the resources to do the work.
Yeah.
But consumers can be brutal as well on the for-profit side. If you stop providing something that has any perceived value, they just stop buying it.
Pretty quickly. Yeah.
And so, in either situation, I think we're always trying to tell a bigger story than
Mhm.
just the fiscal transaction.
Yeah.
So that your product or service would tie into a mission or a vision
Yeah.
that transcends just this exact moment you're in, I think is important.
Yeah.
We were talking a little bit about why is creativity something that we can't ignore,
Mhm.
and what would the consequences be? And I think in this moment, we're sitting here in Canada today, 2026, in a certain reality. And I see, or I feel in the air, this pressure where companies, profit, not for profit, doesn't matter. We all feel like we're fighting over the same slice of the pie.
Mhm.
And fear and scarcity are really linked. This idea that there's not enough and fear really feed off each other.
Yeah.
And this is something that I began wrestling with years and years ago. And I really believe that creativity is a really powerful weapon to fight fear and fight a scarcity mentality within your company.
Okay.
And so I think we need to look at that deeply, and we need to be reminded that creativity reminds us that we're not all just fighting over this limited slice of resources,
Yeah.
but that it allows us to actually bake another whole pie.
Okay.
Does that make
Yeah,
sense?
it does. Yeah.
And
That's a good way
so
to look at it.
I think there's something really powerful there. I'm trying to constantly work that out in my own process. But whether it's how many people come to your church or how many people buy your goods or services or products,
Yeah.
we can feel like, oh, maybe I'm into a certain hiking, or I'm into a certain product, and there's only a certain slice of people.
Yeah.
There's only so many of those people in the world that will be interested in this product or service. And how are we going to continue to stay relevant and fight for just an increased market share in that one slice of the pie? Where if you invite creativity and innovation into that conversation, it opens up your impact and how you might access other people.
Yeah.
In new and exciting ways. And I've always loved that. I don't want to be in competition with all the people around me all the time.
Yeah.
I think it's healthy in a lot of ways, but I also want to realize that maybe within my industry or mission or vision, there's a lot of ways that I can go about tackling that problem and bring in new clients and continue to create fresh relevance and new impact.
Yeah.
And that's an encouraging thing, I think, especially for us today. I know it's tough out there. I know businesses often are struggling to remain relevant and at the forefront and really provide.
Yeah.
But I think we need to be really intentional with shutting down fear, with remembering that scarcity is not real.
Yes.
And creativity and innovation constantly remind us that that's true.
Yeah. That's great.
Yeah.
That's very cool.
Yeah. Thank you, man.
Well, thank you. This has been a lot of fun.
Thanks.
It's been great to sit and chat. I appreciate your time and coming in and talking to us.
Thank you so much. And for everyone who listened, thank you too.
Thanks for listening to our conversation today on Ignite the Frame. We'd love it if you'd follow and give us a rating. Ignite the Frame was produced by Atomic Spark, your video partner.